Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Startup Women's Industry Roundtable Fashion and Retail. Oh, sorry, here we go. My name is Amanda Logan, and I am a programs officer with Startup Canada. To begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I am today, and that is, I am located on the unceded and traditional territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, also known as Ottawa. As we are a national organization, I would also like to acknowledge, with respect, the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are residing on today. Startup Canada is a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with support, community, and tools they need to build a successful business in Canada. Startup Women is an annual program offering support to early stage women identifying entrepreneurs across Canada through topic focused webinars, industry roundtables like today's, and meetings with startup women leaders. These monthly roundtables will provide attendees with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices in their sector and will leave with actionable takeaways and resources that they can implement into their business. We do have a short message from our co-presenting partner, the Scotiabank Women's Initiative.
The Scotiabank Women Initiative is dedicated to your success on your terms.
I'm shaping our industry's vision for the future.
I can expand my business without borrowing from my family.
I know I can face anything thanks to my network.
I'm ready for my next chapter.
I'm inspiring future leaders.
I'm making sure my family's future is secure.
Define your success, and we'll help you achieve it. With unbiased access to capital and tailored solutions, bespoke specialized education, and holistic advisory services and mentorship. Join our community of women today, the Scotiabank Women Initiative.
Thank you. I would also like to thank our other co-presenting partner, UPS, our ecosystem partners, Mastercard, WEOC, and Constant Contact, and our community partners. We'll add the full list into the chat. Today's session is for women in fashion and retail, and we're very excited to be diving into this discussion. We're going to pop the schedule of today's events on the screen, and we'll be starting off with a round of speed introductions from each of our attendees. You can do this by either talking on camera or introducing yourself on the chat. Next, we'll hear expert talks from our guest speakers, followed by a 50-minute Q&A with our speakers. The last part of today's session will be networking breakout rooms where everyone will get a chance to connect with 2 to 3 fellow attendees. Speakers will also be placed into these rooms with you. We have 35 minutes carved out for these, and then we'll do 3 rounds around 10 to 12 minutes each. Okay. Now we will get started with attendee introductions. So if your camera is on, I will assume you are comfortable introducing yourself and I'll call on your name to start. But also feel free to share your LinkedIn in the chat. If your camera's not on, I will assume that you don't want to speak out loud, and that's totally okay. Please introduce yourself in the chat. So the first person, I'm just going to go in order of who I see on my screen. So the first person is Candice.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Candice Mayers. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I live in Nova Scotia now, about 2 years. I do have a degree in fashion and design. My focus is jewelry, so I do have my jewelry line brand. So I'm just really excited to be a part of the discussion, to network, to see what's out there. Nova Scotia doesn't have a lot, but hopefully that I can get some information on the outside and be able to connect and just see what more information I can get. So
Perfect. Thank you so much, Candice.
you're welcome.
Next on my screen is Tasha.
Hi, I'm Tasha Nathanson. I have a company, Seven Leagues Leather. We're making fish leather upcycled from fisheries waste, and we're making a clean, strong, beautiful biomaterial, very sustainable for fashion application.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll just remind everyone if you want to introduce yourself out loud, please feel free to turn on your camera and I'll call on you. Otherwise, we would love if you introduced yourself in the chat. You know, this is a great networking opportunity. I see Pamela. Pamela, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry, I was a few minutes late. I
No,
got all
that's okay.
screwed up with time. I don't know why us Canadians, all we do is say sorry consistently. Um, I'm Pam Shanehouse. I have been in fashion for 20 years. I was the first person to ever start a size diverse fashion brand in Canada. And brand is on a back burner, but thinking about bringing it back. But the work that I do now is concentrated to responsible fashion, meaning adaptive fashion, accessible work. I do a lot of work in accessibility in all industries. And that's
Wonderful.
who I am. I'm sorry, I didn't put my glasses on to hide my bags that are on
No,
my
no,
eyes at
that's
this particular moment.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. I think that's everyone that I see with their cameras on. So everyone else, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Um, okay. Sorry, I lost my spot. Okay. Now, I'm going to be introducing our experts, and then we'll proceed to our Q&A. We're going to start with some expert talks. We encourage you to ask questions following those expert talks. You can do this either by typing your question to the chat or by using the raise hand function, and we'll call on you to turn your microphone on. So, without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our speakers today. We are joined by Elizabeth Young, the owner of Flowers Talk Tivoli, Stacey Kalsi, founder and CEO of Sunday Littles, and Rowena Tsang, director of segmentation with UPS. So we're going to get started with our expert talk. And Elizabeth, I would love to invite you to kick things off and tell us your story.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Young. I'm the owner of Flowers Talk Tivoli. We are a flower shop in Ottawa, Ontario. I opened my first flower shop in 2004, just in kind of the same neighborhood over. And I had that for about 10 years or so. And then in 2014, I took over an existing flower shop in Westboro, the one I'm at right now in the basement, called Tivoli. So it is named after a botanical garden in Italy. And that is why the name is now Flowers Talk Tivoli, because I wanted to incorporate my 10 years of Flowers Talk and my customers and my brand with Tivoli. So that all took place in 2014, and Tivoli is 37 years old. It's one of the oldest flower shops in Ottawa. It's a very competitive market in Ottawa for flower shops. So it's been an adventure and such a learning opportunity for the last 20 years to adapt. So when I started my business, there was no such thing as Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, e-commerce. It was all just brick and mortar, word of mouth, Yelp, Yellow Pages, and all of that. So I'm excited to have you pick my brain on anything that you have to ask as far as retail.
Oh, sorry, I think I was muted there. I thank you, Elizabeth. I will pass it off to Stacey now to share your story.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I apologize in advance with my voice. I lost my voice over the weekend, but it's on the healing end there. But I have a company it's an e-commerce sleepwear company called Sunday Littles. I started this company about a little over a year ago. And we exclusively sell online, but I would say in the past couple of months, we've been kind of just our product is being carried in more boutique stores across Canada and US. I'm also a full-time dentist as well, and I have two little ones, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're 13 months apart. But what made me start the sleepwear company is that my daughter was very colicky around like 3 to 4 months. It was just really hard to get her to sleep, and she wasn't actually hitting a lot of her milestones. her skin was like very inflamed, and like she wasn't getting any sleep, neither was I. So I was kind of doing everything in the book. I even took some courses on like sleep training and nothing really helped. And I kind of just went back to like how I was raised as a child. And I know that my parents put a lot of emphasis on organic clothing. So then I started Googling it. And once I came across the benefits of bamboo, I think I must have sampled like maybe over 50 different fabrics. And then once I got a prototype and put it on my daughter ended up sleeping the entire night. And it was just a complete game changer for her and for her skin. And she was hitting her milestones. And that's what led me to create Sunday Littles. I just figured if this has helped my family monumentally, then I should just pay this forward.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Stacey. And now I'm going to pass it over to Rowena to talk about UPS and how they support small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so thank you for the welcome. My name is Rowena Tsang, and I'm the Director of Segmentation Strategy at UPS Canada. So I've been actually with the company for 23 years, and I have experience firstly in operations, then moved to finance, and now in marketing. And in for UPS, we really are dedicated to working with entrepreneurs. We've been sponsoring, I think, Startup Canada for I think probably about 10 years now. And, from these events, since the very beginning of attending these events, we learned firsthand, speaking with the entrepreneur, all the ideas that they have and kind of we started to understand kind of what you guys are looking for, what type of help you need. Because obviously, we deal with a lot of large companies, but in terms of smaller companies, kind of what hand holding is required, what type of discounts would you need to kind of grow, not just domestically, but also internationally. So from that, we've really formulated an ambassador program, which really helps new customers on board, smaller new customers on board like you, who can sign up for a UPS discount, tell us a little bit more about kind of what your products are so we can find the right discounts for you. And then from there, once you sign up and you open an account, that ambassador team will then contact you to kind of take you through the entire process of making your first shipment, shipping internationally, addressing any brokerage questions you have, and then even like reviewing your first bill. So we've really tried to tap into and provide solutions that are catered to small businesses, retail. And furthermore, we have a lot of solutions that we develop for a better customer experience that not only would work for the Amazons of the world, but it also work for smaller companies, smaller retailers as well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rowena. Yeah, we've been partners for a very long time, and
Yeah.
we hear from our entrepreneurs all the time about how they use UPS, and it's often one of the resources our speakers share because they've had such a positive experience. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to begin our panel discussion. So for those who feel comfortable, we do invite you to turn on your cameras for this portion. We have a few prompt questions to start. However, we do encourage all of our participants to ask questions. You can do this by either using the raise hand function, and I'll call on you to ask your question out loud, or you can ask your question through the chat. Okay, so to get started for our experts, I'm going to ask Elizabeth and Stacey if you could each speak to this. Could you start off by each explaining how you decided to get into the retail space and why, considering it can be such an environment, a competitive environment? I mean, as you mentioned, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, if you want to go for it.
Sure. Sure. So my path was not definitely straight. So before I opened my first flower shop, I actually owned an event planning and concierge company at one of the major hotels in downtown Ottawa. So this is going to age me, but it was back before there was Wi-Fi and hotspotting. That was a thing.
I'm
And I
sorry,
owned a
you
business.
cannot do aging. All right, not
Thank you,
allowed.
Pamela.
I'm 72 years old, so I think I'm older than a few of these people put together. So let's take that word out of the
Thank you. So
Sorry for interrupting, but not
when I
accepted.
had my business center, we actually used to sell internet usage. So it was like literally $5 for every 15 minutes. It was like a little mini internet cafe in the lobby of this hotel in Ottawa. And the general manager came and sat down with my business partner and I and said, things are changing. We're going to be doing, there's going to be Wi-Fi in the lobbies. There's going to be this, there's going to be this, and the business center will become, technically obsolete. So you need to start thinking of another thing to grow your business. And so we were doing quite a few events at the time, and we were using flowers all the time. And our florist was Tivoli, the business that I currently own today. And so we decided to open up a flower shop to be able to become a supplier to our company at the Westin. So that's where the idea of Flowers Talk, the name came from. Flowers evoke emotion, flowers speak when we don't have words. So that's where Flowers Talk came from. And that's where we expanded and we opened up our first retail location. And I had a background in horticulture, which helped a lot with the plant side of it and things like that. But it was a bit of a lot of a learning curve to be able to open up a retail location from having a service-based business. So that was very interesting to be able to have that, as far as setting up coolers and buying flowers, and owning a flower shop is like owning a fruit stand. Everything's so perishable, so we can't have products sitting on our cooler and put it on sale because things only have a week lifespan. So that's where the first flower shop started, and it all came full circle when the opportunity to come over to Tivoli and to purchase my favorite flower shop before we opened ours. So that's when we purchased Tivoli.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And Stacey, I know you did talk about the background of Sunday Littles in your introduction, but maybe you could speak a little bit as well to choosing to move forward with retail, knowing what type of space it is.
Yeah, absolutely. What made me go into it is just because I felt like there was a gap in the market. I was purchasing pajamas because I feel like with newborns and like infants, you're just kind of changing pajamas constantly. What I found particularly is that outfits wouldn't last longer than a month, like even several weeks. And just because babies grow so fast. So I wanted to kind of tailor the design to almost come up with this idea of like grow with me sizing. So our products do fit up to 3 times longer. And it's just because we have a convertible foot muff and with the stretchiness of bamboo. So I just found that there was a gap in the market. Like it was just kind of, as a new mom, it was just exhausting constantly buying new pajamas and things like that. Another thing was that, in terms of like the softness of the fabric, it was just really hard to find something that was just soft enough on like the gentle skin, especially like really sensitive skin as well. So I was just kind of shopping relentlessly. And then once I saw a product that kind of offered all of those benefits, that's what I thought that, moms kind of would love to have this in terms of their child routine and bedtime routine and everything like that.
Yeah, that's great. Now looking at how the retail space has changed, since you each have gotten involved, I'm curious, what's one major change that you've seen in the fashion and retail industry in the last 3 to 5 years or so, that most women-led ventures should be paying attention to?
The biggest change that I've seen is that there's a huge emphasis now on slow fashion. I think a lot of customers are just staying away from like the fast fashion, especially when you realize how much waste is involved. So I've just seen like a dramatic shift in the emphasis on slow fashion. And even with our products, we do like monthly limited curated drops each month, but we try to just make sure that everything has like almost like a storytelling approach to each print that we drop. But we do drop our pajamas in limited inventory just to kind of, help with everything that's going on and just maintain that slow fashion approach.
I do have actually a follow-up question to that, because I do see slow fashion is very trendy, right? And
Yeah.
it's something that consumers are really paying attention to. How do you best communicate that to your consumers? What possibly the ethics or methods behind your company might be?
I think that a lot of behind the scenes. I feel like the more that we allow And this is something that we started to shift on. Like at the beginning, there wasn't a whole ton of behind the scenes approach. It was just a lot of like almost like very stylized photos, and like every Instagram post or something on the website was just like overly polished. And I felt like it wasn't us. I don't think it matches motherhood at all. So once I kind of made a shift, I want to say like maybe 8 months ago, I was like, I think people want to see behind the scenes and the nitty gritty details. So we just kind of emphasize a lot of that. We'll be honest with our inventory. We'll kind of show things that are selling out, but especially with bamboo, with the fabric being sustainable, we just kind of do a lot of like storytelling, or just a lot of behind the scene approach. And I think that's where the community really understands and gains that we're following the slow fashion approach.
That's great. And Elizabeth, for yourself, you're not in fashion, you're in flowers. And as you spoke to you've been in the space for a while. What changes have you seen primarily in the last 3 to 5 years?
A lot of changes. I think a lot of people are now looking for more experience-based purchasing. I think everybody went through that phase of, with COVID, just can I get it as quick as I can? Can I get it as cheap as possible? And I think quality kind of fell off the radar for a lot of people during that time. But I think really now, just with AI automation and everything like that, I think people are really looking for that human connection. So when they come into the shop, they smell that fragrance of the eucalyptus, they smell those roses, they smell the winter greens. And I think people really want to know the people behind the business. They want to support the local flower shop that's been there for 38 years, who donates to all their charities. And I think they really want that connection with the people in the stores. So I'm finding it's changed from just, get it now with, Uber and Amazon, all of that, to I want quality. I'm okay to spend a little bit more. I won't buy as much, but maybe I'll buy more often. That's what we're seeing in our retail space.
That's fantastic. And now, Rowena, UPS works with countless small and medium fashion and retail brands across Canada. What trends are you seeing in these businesses and how they manage logistics and shipping?
Yeah, so on a logistics standpoint, I think in the very early days, free shipping, free returns was something that retailers, large and small, were trying to, incorporate into their business model. And I'm not saying that that is not important. I mean, free shipping increases trial, and the improvement on the returns decreases buyer remorse and also could increase trial as well. But I am seeing in the last year or so more companies either increasing their threshold of free shipping, or some have reverted to a model that is a nominal fee for delivery, regardless of how much you spend, and restocking fees for the returns. And I think that is something that is growing. Everyone's looking at their profit margins and looking how to protect that. I mean, if you even think about Amazon on October 1st of this year, they don't allow free shipping for family members in the same household, right? So for the Prime members. So I think there is a shift, especially with all the increase in costs. Companies need to kind of recover for some of their expenses.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Elizabeth, being in the business for over a decade, you did speak to this a little bit with customers looking a little bit more for quality and that experience and a little bit of a human experience. Um, so you've identified how you noticed how customers shop, but how has that made you have to adapt to stay relevant in the market?
Well, when we opened up our businesses, we never knew we were going to become full-time content creators, right? And that's a thing. It is a thing. And if I look at, I do help other flower shops too with their marketing and things like that. And if I do look at their social media and I see their last post was from like Mother's Day, I'm like, come on, someone's going to
Mm.
think your business is closed. So I think we always need to be in top of mind of our customers. So, and it's not just the, the pose, perfect hair, as Stacey's saying, like that perfect, like curated Instagram. It's welcoming people into your business with the behind the scenes, showing the messy in the middle, showing the team members, showing the process, showing what goes into these beautiful designs that we're all creating, from jewelry to fashion, to handbags to flowers. I think we need to welcome people into our businesses and really show the behind the scenes so that we're always relevant. So when it's like, hey, I need pajamas for my newborn, I know where I'm going. I need flowers, I know where I'm going. I need a gift for somebody, I know where I'm going. So I think that's something that we always need to be doing. And, it doesn't have to be perfect. And again, hair, makeup. Like when I first started doing Facebook Lives, like I would literally cry before I got on shooting a video because the itty bitty shitty committee in my head would say, you're not young enough, your skin's not perfect, you're not thin enough. And so I had to get rid of all of that. I was literally the kid in the Sears photo booth for family pictures with, holding Kermit the Frog in front of my face because I didn't want to be on camera. But I had to get over that for my business to be able to make my business current, especially during COVID. Like that's how kind of our whole workshops took off during COVID is we were open for curbside pickup, but my staff was all on CERB. I would lock the door. I put a sign on the front of my shop saying, on doing a workshop from 2 to 3, and I go to the back of my store and I do a Facebook Live, and then just to keep people connected. And then people would say like, hey, do you do kits? Let's maybe we can, buy something from you. And so that's how we started shipping across Canada and bringing people together to do these workshops. So it's not waiting until you're perfect to do something. It started with the Facebook Lives. It started the messy. I showed the messy behind the middle, behind the scenes and everything. And people really connected with that and then wanted to continue to support us.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And I think great advice on how to be adaptable and change with the times.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many times do we all hear pivot?
Too much,
Right?
too much.
Too much.
Especially in online culture, right? Like the trends move so fast and so quickly. And that actually brings me to a question for you, Stacey. We did speak about you being a sustainable company and your care that goes into your drops and but how do you find that balance with your purpose-driven mission? But with the fast-paced cycle of fashion, right? You see, especially online and TikTok, is, these really, really big companies are every day coming out with new styles, and how do you compete with that?
You know what? Something that I've noticed that's been going really well for us is I've been really tapping into like nostalgic prints. So something that kind of reminds like millennial moms, which is our target audience, like something that reminds moms of what their childhood it was like. And I feel like kind of always tapping into that nostalgic feel. I feel like when the prints are timeless, they kind of never really go out of style. And then like it that print won't not make sense in a couple years because all of the pieces are designed to like pass down to the siblings as well. So we always kind of keep that idea in mind that okay, whenever we're doing a print in style, like it's kind of it would be nice to keep up with the trends, like even for like for example, like some of the movies that are coming out. Like recently, I've had a couple conversations with different licensing brands in terms of like doing collaboration drops in the future. And I think that with like certain movies and Disney movies that are coming out in the future, I always just kind of when I ask for the assets, and it's interesting because a lot of these assets they do have things from like the 90s, and I always just for some reason tend to gravitate towards like more of those nostalgic prints. I just think that it works well, and it kind of just it's pretty calming. I feel like some of the prints that I see or like in terms of fashion can be quite noisy, so it's just nice to have a little bit of something that reminds moms of their childhood.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you bring up a great point. You are ultimately selling to the parents, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like running into a balance where it's like we've noticed that like oh, because now we've been doing adult pajamas. So like a lot of our style really like the moms love for themselves for them to wear and then as well as the infant like from 0 to 12 months because really it's mom picking out the outfits. But in terms of toddlers, that's because even with my kids now that they're toddler, like my daughter always wants to pick out like something that has like butterflies, or my son wants to wear something with cars. So even then, like we're kind of working on some designs where it's like vintage toy cars and things like that, just so that way it speaks to them. But it's kind of cool just to hold up a swatch to them and like see their reaction. So I'm like, okay, if you guys like it, hopefully other toddlers will like it.
You have your own little testers.
Exactly.
I love that. Now for both of you, thinking back and looking back on your journey, what was a turning point or an aha moment when you noticed that things really started to accelerate for
For us,
either
it
of
was,
you?
sorry. For us, it was during COVID when we realized that we weren't just selling flowers and we weren't just selling plants. We were selling comfort. We were selling relationships. We were selling love. This is when people weren't able to go to restaurants. They weren't able to go to celebrations of life. And people were working from home. So flowers really brought that sense of comfort to people. And everybody became a plant expert, and they were looking for like the newest varieties of plants and things like that. So it just gave people that little bit of hope and that little bit of life, and especially during like those cold winter months and things like that. So that was a really big kind of turning point for us, was realizing we're not just selling flowers, we're selling so much more than that.
Hmm. Thank you. Stacey, how about yourself?
Yeah, my answer totally ties in with Elizabeth's approach. When I kind of realized, I think originally I felt like I was just selling pajamas. And then once I started getting like so much feedback, or even like DMs in the middle of the night saying like, oh my gosh, my kids are finally sleeping through the night. That's when I started realizing like, okay, I'm actually building a community here. And it's like, yeah, exactly. We're not selling pajamas. We're just kind of selling almost like the idea of like we're your village and we're behind you. Cause I feel like that thinking of you have a village that looks after your kids, I feel like it somehow got lost in time with like everything getting so busy in life. So it's just nice to kind of tap in to be like, hey, if you ever need us, like we're here. Like, and usually I'm the one, and I've kind of made it a point with the team. Like I prefer to answer to every DM and every email just because I just feel like that's just as more like transparent as it can get. And then and another thing is that because we're building this community, a lot of the moms are like, hey, like, I want to also match my kid. Like I love their prints and I love the softness of it. So we've started doing a lot of our drops now include like matching mom pajamas as well. And that's something that's been a game changer because I feel like a lot of the moms want to match their kids, and there's something just really sweet just to kind of go to bed or do bedtime routine with mom and their kids, and they're in the same pajamas.
I love that. And I think that's like
Mhm.
a real to, look back at a previous question. I think that's a really nice way to balance trendy and sustainable, right? Because you see like with, online, people always want to post photos of them in their matching family pajamas and everything like that. That's a nice way for you to find a way to keep with the trends while balancing keeping a sustainable business. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now you both have different experiences when it comes to how you sell your products and how you connect with customers. Can you each take us through your thought process on choosing e-commerce versus a brick and mortar store for business? Because I know a lot of our entrepreneurs, that's a big turning point for them, right? Is when do they stay online and when do they open up shop? So if you could take us through that decision and then possibly some advice for entrepreneurs as to what elements they should be considering when making that decision.
That's a good question. Do you want to go first, Stacey, or do you want me to?
No, you can go first.
For us, we started the business before there was e-commerce. So that's the way it started for us. But it was very interesting introducing e-commerce into the flower shop. So for those that might not know, in the floral world, there's like FTD, Teleflora, Bloom Nation. So these are order gatherers that you could, and you still could, have your website through them. You pay a huge service fee to them, and they host your website for you and all of that. And I was dead set against that from the beginning. And when it became time for us to look at e-commerce at the very beginning, this was before Shopify, imagine that. And so we were getting quotes for, $10,000-$15,000 just to build just one shopping page that you could buy a template for, pennies now. So that was an interesting go at it. We were one of the first e-commerce flower shops in Ottawa and in Ontario. So that was a big expense, but I had, had high hopes that it was going to do very well. And so when I had my first shop, I had some small offerings up there. And then when I bought Tivoli, there was not an online shopping platform for Tivoli. So that was almost restarting that again as far as integrating those. And then just nurturing those different sides. And it was interesting because the dynamics of the team was everybody was used to taking orders over the phone or people walking in. So then to be able to print off an order and fill that order, there was the education as far as the disconnect between the customer and the designer. So that was an interesting learning curve for our team as well. But it evolved. And so it evolved to, e-commerce. And then of course, adding on so that people can shop off of Facebook and Instagram and things like that.
And a bit of a follow-up, outside of possibly cost, were there other decisions as to why you didn't want to go with that other platform you talked about that could, host your website? Because I think a lot of our entrepreneurs, when they're, wondering, do I start on Etsy? Do I start on one of these hosting platforms? And can you talk us through a little bit more what went into that decision, your own website versus a host?
Yeah, definitely. And it was also we're not cookie cutter floral designers and we don't do happy face mugs. We don't do the traditional, things at Christmas that you would see on some of those websites. So I didn't want to restrain my team's creativity as well. Also, the long-time contracts of being with these people. And so if somebody was to order $100 arrangement, the person at the other end would really only get $40 or $50. So the shops that are filling these orders are inundated with all of these orders and they feel like they're busy, but they're busy filling the orders, but the money's not matching up at the end of it. So when I really sat down and looked at what the investment was for us to do it on our own versus starting off and then breaking off of the contract and all of that, it just didn't make sense for us. And so we had to keep our costs fairly low because retail expenses and rent are so high. So we tried to go with as much a very small shop as we could so that we could still fill our orders, still have a retail experience, but still have an online presence. So if people are looking for, at what point do I go into brick and mortar? You know, there's been so many changes as far as in retail space. When everybody started, they want these big open concept, beautiful, but you're paying per square foot. So when it's $40 to $50 a square foot for your big, beautiful open space that there's nothing in there that people can purchase and everything's spread out, those times have changed. Now people are wanting a lot smaller retail spaces. They want lower rents. They want shorter lease times. Landlords are having to take retail spaces that were large and now splitting them into 2, 3, 4. So they're looking at 500 square feet versus 2,000 square feet. So if I can give you any advice, it would be to, if you haven't already started working with other businesses as far as like popping up in their location or collaborating with them to go into another brick and mortar and test the waters, see what you like, because that's where you're really going to see if this has more legs. And also your brick and mortar with your e-commerce, it never closes. So if you're e-commerce, then you can, turn off your website, right? You can lock the door. But when you've got those two things coming together, you have to be able to have the bandwidth to be able to handle that, the team members to be able to handle that, snowstorms being open, nobody coming in. It's a whole other thing. And looking back, I would definitely 100% go into retail again. I would just probably do it in a little bit of a different path.
Yeah, for sure. And I have one more brick and mortar follow-up for you, and then
For sure.
I'll tap into you, Stacey. Because I know I'm in Ottawa as well, and so I know where you are. In Westboro, you're in a very trendy, walkable area of the city, right? Which is not all of Ottawa. There's a lot of not walkable areas.
Yes.
For our entrepreneurs who are considering opening up a physical shop, how much does location matter in that decision making?
Oh, such a good question. Our neighborhood has changed so much.
Mhm.
It is a walkable neighborhood. It definitely used to be a lot cuter of a walkable neighborhood. There are businesses that are not, there are more service-based businesses now in our neighborhood than there was before. There's a lot of hairstylists, a lot of nail salons, a lot of dentists, a lot of yoga studios. So those aren't they're great businesses, but they're not the cute little, I'm going to poke in here and look at this, or I'm going to go here. So there's not a lot of fashion. There's not a lot of gift. There's no shoe store anymore. So things have really changed. It's more, we have, again, those service-based businesses, the Pizza Huts, the cannabis locations, things like that have come in. Um, so I do believe location has a lot to do with it, but I almost think your location on social media is as important as your location physically for your brick and mortar. And everybody used to say location, location, location physically, at the corner of 285, 282 Richmond Road in Ottawa. But if I don't have that location on my socials where people know that they can buy from me, it's easy to have delivery from me. It's easy to come pick something up. That's where I would tell people to focus first before they looked at opening up a brick and mortar location.
That's great. Thank you so much for digging into that. Okay, Stacey, I'd love to hear how you explored, especially from the other side of things, being an e-commerce business, as to how you came to that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was just, I guess it was based off of like how I am as a consumer, especially being a new mom. I think I was just looking more so for convenience. So like when I was shopping for my kids and their pajamas, I wasn't one to like walk out. I know before kids, I loved the idea of like heading out the house and going shopping, but I think at that time, like whenever, like if I was up at 3 a.m., I think that's when my thoughts were going wild. And I was like, hey, let me just quickly, like my baby needs more pajamas, like let me place an order. So I think I was just looking more so for convenience. Just like you place an order and you have like multiple options there, and I wanted to gain like a bigger reach. I wanted, because like for me, the pajamas I was ordering was like either from the States or like even out in Ontario, so I just knew based on the products, like I just wanted to be able to reach a lot more consumers. And then another thing that we're kind of looking into, and just we've been doing it a little bit more, is getting our products into more boutiques across Canada and the US. So that's been nice because a lot of the times our customers actually want to feel the fabric, they want to see the fit, especially for like adult pajamas too. So that's kind of like I would say a downfall in strictly doing e-commerce, is that a lot of consumers want to be able to feel things. So while we're only in like a select number of boutiques, it would be nice to kind of be in like more larger spaces, like larger retailers. Because then I think that that would be our opportunity just to kind of reach out to more customers. And then another thing would be with the size guide. Like we do our best to make the size guide as accurate as possible, but that's just another downfall, kind of just being strictly on e-commerce. So it would be wonderful to, in the future, to, have a brick and mortar store, or just even being in just kind of more retailers across Canada.
Yeah. And I know, you know, getting into boutiques and getting into other stores is a huge challenge for new businesses.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit as to how you built those relationships with boutiques and maybe your story of how you got into your first one?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, to be honest, it kind of helps. It all kind of came organically. I would say originally when I started, I would be emailing different boutiques, and sometimes I even went to like our local boutiques, but we always got great feedback on our products, but everyone was just like, to be honest, we're at full capacity. And so I just took a step back at that point and I just focused mainly on direct to consumer. And then I would say the more that we started growing, and especially with our holiday prints, I think our holiday prints is like what really helped us set us apart from other brands and just kind of made us gain a larger reach. Then we started organically getting emails saying, hey, we would love to carry your products. I would say with Christmas, like maybe going into next year Christmas, like for our collection, I think that we'll probably order more inventory, because that's been a big thing, is a lot of people want to carry the Christmas collection, but I just don't have enough inventory to give to them. But yeah, I would say so far it's been organic. I think they just find us whether through our ads or on social media. And then another thing that helps significantly is an app called Fair. You do link it to your Shopify, but it's a way for like small businesses to reach out to retailers, and then you have a catalog of your products there. So that's another way for different retailers just to get to know your brand and then to be able to place an order directly through Faire.
Thank you. Thank you so much for exploring that. I think that's great
Yeah.
advice about, also just paying attention to the calendar year and right, the cycle as to when boutiques or different companies might be looking to partner or carry your product, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, I do have a question for you, Rowena. Before I ask it, I just want to remind everyone, you are welcome to ask questions too. Please feel free to use the raise hand function or pop your questions into the chat and we'll get to them. Now, Rowena, I would love if you could explore that, many creative founders struggle with the unglamorous parts of business. They get into business because maybe they're artists, they're designers, they're creating lovely prints or, things like that, the stuff that sounds very exciting and what drives their passion for it. But the unglamorous parts sometimes can be the shipping, the returns, the inventory. What practical advice could you give to founders who are trying to streamline operations without using the personal touch that their customers love?
Yeah, so yeah, I get what you're saying because it's more of a process, something that you have to do, but it's taking yourself out of the creativity side of things
Mhm.
and what you love. I would say first and foremost, standardize and automate anything that you can. There's a lot of people that underestimate the power of automation in terms of like, processing a label. Streamlining the connectivity of the information flow from your courier to your systems, right? I mean, even if it takes you, 4 clicks to get to an answer versus it just shows up with 1 click, those clicks add up. So anything that you can automate, processing an order, returns, answering Wismo calls, like where's my order calls, any of those, automate that so that those mundane tasks are taken care of, and then you could spend more time on the personalization things. And the other thing that I also see is, a lot of companies are looking at 3PLs, the ones that will be fulfilling for their orders on behalf of that. Make sure that if you do that, you own that delivery experience still by making sure that that information, this package status flows back to you so that you can address any inbound questions much quicker, much easier. And also, I would say choose a courier that has a very robust final mile solutions that are more self-serve for your customer. So it doesn't really require you to intervene and, call UPS and say, can you leave it at the front door? Or can you redirect it to an access point, right? So partner with a courier, could be like UPS, that has those solutions for the end user so that anything that they need to change on the delivery experience, they can do it on their own at their time, on their dime, as opposed to you getting yourself involved.
Thank you. I think that's been fantastic advice. Thank you so much for sharing. We have a question in the chat that I really like from Nabia, and for any of you who might have experience with it, any of our speakers, what do you find works better, organic social or paid social ads, especially in a competitive market? And then as well, if any of you have any experience doing paid social through an agency versus in-house, I would love if you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for me personally, it was a little bit of a combination of both. I think organically we're able to just by posting a lot of the behind the scenes, I feel like that's our best way of sharing our story and connecting with our community. But paid social ads has been astronomical for us. I think that's just our way. That's how we typically gain new customers, I would say would be through paid ads. And then initially, I actually took a course and it taught how to run Like it taught you how to like actually set up your own ads. I would say, especially kind of like in that grinding period where you're just getting your company like off the ground, I would say it's probably best, and I'm sure you can even YouTube it, but it's kind of best just to do whatever you can to keep costs down, and that would be just trying to be able to do it on your own. Now we finally reached to a point where we do outsource it to an agency, but the goal ultimately in the future would be really nice to have someone in-house to run our ads.
Thank you for sharing.
So I do everything organically. I used to do Facebook ads, and I actually had an agency that I was paying during the pandemic when it was just me at my shop for the first, 6 weeks or so. And if I tell you that I was paying $5,000 a month for this agency, and that did not include the cost of my Facebook ads spend, but it had one newsletter a week, one blog post, and two Facebook, two LinkedIn, and two Instagram. And so one of the things as far as, keeping things lean, I doubled down and taught myself how to do it. So now it's something that I absolutely love. I know that somebody else cannot be the voice of my flower shop. Nobody else knows my brand the way that I do. Nobody else can sell it the way I can marketing wise. Nobody's my voice. So it's one of the highlights of what I get to work on in my business is my marketing, my newsletter, and I have seen amazing growth through that. And as far as like doing my newsletter brings us more than paid ads. So the girls at the shop will literally be like, Elizabeth, did you send in a newsletter? Because I call it this crank wheel, because it's like, send out the newsletter and those people bought this, or they saw the pre-order or the workshop sold out and things like that. So if you have not already, I would definitely 100% invest your time in building your newsletter list. So whether you're doing a pop-up or you're grabbing an email from every single person that orders from you, and don't be afraid to email your list. If they unsubscribe from you, that is perfectly fine, because it means they're not going to buy from you. And the more subscribers on your list, it clutters your list, and a lot of the CRMs charge you more money. So if people opt out, let them opt out, right? We all get, emails from Banana Republic, Gap, all these people daily, and we may not read them every day, but we're definitely not unsubscribing. So I would say email your list and focus on that if you don't have the money to do the Facebook ads.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. We have a question from Shaylin that I love. So for both of you, after the last 5 years, how do you ensure your businesses remain nimble during things like a pandemic, economic uncertainty, some of these huge things that we've had to face over the past few years? Do you have any tips or advice?
I'd say, as everybody says, like trim off the fat, cut your cost of goods. You have to cut as much as you can to be able to survive. You can't hold all this old inventory, all this old, product, and then in hopes that it's going to sell, because it won't. So I'd say sell off anything that you can. I was doing during the pandemic, I was doing Instagram sidewalk sales to sell off old things. So it was literally a garage sale, but I had it set up on my phone, and it was me in there in the DMs accepting the payments, all of that. So anything you can do to get as absolutely scrappy as possible to be able to keep your head afloat. And if you have employees, it is even more stressful because their livelihood is on your shoulders. So you need to cut. And honestly, as entrepreneurs and as women identifying entrepreneurs, we know what it's like to get scrappy. We know what it's like to work 18 hours. We will do absolutely anything we can to be able to keep our businesses afloat.
Thank you. And then a second question from Shaylin that I love is, what are some of the pain points you had when you initially started your business?
Pain point for me was financing. Like seriously, I had two business partners, and they were married. I was not married. I had set myself up as far as, credit cards and bank account and doing all this, but I started my first business when I was in my early 20s, and to be able to get financing from a bank was so unbelievably frustrating because my female business partners had to have cosigns from their husbands, and it was like You've got to be kidding me. Like on paper, they were considered homemakers, even though they were entrepreneurs. So that is a huge bone of contention with me as far as getting financing as a female entrepreneur and being taken seriously when it came down to sit down with my landlord and negotiate my lease. Oh, little lady, don't worry about that. Or, oh, don't you worry about that. That's just fine print. And just trying to break through and being taken seriously when it came down to lawyers, accountants, banks, and landlords back 20 years ago when I started.
Mm-hmm. Stacey, how about yourself?
Absolutely. I would say a big pain point for us was just trying to separate ourselves from competitors because obviously I feel like retail is very saturated. There are other sleepwear brands. So I think it was just a lot of, and especially with moms, it's just a lot of things that's gaining moms' trust because they're probably already so used to a pajama brand that they stick with. So a big thing for us was like trying to be able to gain trust as well as separating ourselves from other PJ brands that obviously might be more convenient where you can like go to the mall and just grab whatever sleepwear that you see there. Another thing was funding, just trying to and in addition to funding would be like logistics of the business. Like I don't have any business experience whatsoever, so just trying to learn everything in terms of like email marketing and like how to set up the Shopify account. Even a big one was also margins, like just learning what the margins are and kind of ties into what Elizabeth was saying. It's like, okay, with shipping and everything, that also chews into your margin if you have a warehouse, all of these different things that encompasses running your business. It's like, what can you do to obviously maximize your margin? And I feel like at the beginning, I'm sure it's a common mistake where it's like, I think everyone just wants to sell at that point. So you just think, okay, I'm so happy I got a sale. But there's sometimes there's such a large cost that goes into it. But I would say sometimes with all these things, like time just kind of weaves all these little problems out. Like the more you do it, I feel like who I am today as an entrepreneur and who I was last year, it's almost like unrecognizable. And sometimes I think I just needed that time just to kind of go through all the different trial and errors and then just to kind of learn on my own.
Thank you. Sam, I see you have your hand up. I'll invite you to ask your question.
I do. Hi. It's specifically for Stacey, but I'm sure it applies to others. How do you manage your time? Little kids, day job, and entrepreneur work.
Yes. Oh gosh, I get this question a lot. I don't even know how I do it, to be honest. A big thing for me is what really helps me is that I personally use like just any notes app, but I just exhaust all of my ideas or like whatever thoughts I have. I just put it on a notes app, even if it's like silly. Like sometimes it'll be like very business oriented, but it's like, oh, I need to buy my son's jacket, or I need to exchange this, or I need to set up my son's swimming classes. So I just kind of exhaust everything. I do wake up very early in the morning. I try to wake up around 5 a.m. because my kids wake up at 8 a.m. So from 5 to 8, I have that block of time to work. And these are all my days off. And then if my kids happen to go to preschool or something like that, such as today, then I usually try to pack in as much as I can on Wednesdays and then just do as much as I can because a big thing with me and a big non-negotiable is that when my kids are home, I just want them to have like completely my undivided time. So I usually just put it aside, but like if a thought comes up, like when I am with my kids, like same thing, I just quickly jot it down on my notes. But I always just remember like, hey, when I put the kids to bed, I will just go through everything later. And sometimes I look at my list and some of the things that was a thought when I was with my kids, it kind of seems so irrelevant and it doesn't even matter. But yeah, once I put my kids to bed, I would say like I'm usually up until 2 a.m., just like packing orders. Yeah, doing a lot of this. So it's a lot. And like even at work too, like same thing with my patients. I just want them to have 100% of like my undivided attention. So I take my laptop everywhere I go. But at lunch breaks is usually when I really try to bang out a lot of my emails. But another thing for me is like asking for help. Like there's a lot of times where I had to ask my husband, like, okay, can you do X, Y, and Z so I can focus on that? But I'm not great at it, I'm sure. But I just know for me, something that has been really helpful for me is just kind of exhausting. Like even if it seems really silly, just once I know that everything I possibly need to do is on this piece of paper, somehow it just makes me feel better.
That is a busy schedule, Stacey.
Yeah.
I admire it.
Yeah.
Beth has a great question in the chat, and I'm going to build on it a little bit. So Beth is asking, how do we get lean when the resources are not here in Canada? But then I would love if our speakers could speak to what resources you feel like might be missing in Canada, but also if there's some resources in Canada specifically that you have been able to access. And because I think sometimes it can be overwhelming to try to find those resources. And I will plug that Startup Canada will be sharing a link with a bunch of resources for you to access. Um, but yeah, I'd love if our speakers could speak to that about what resources maybe you felt were missing, but then what ones were you able to access in Canada?
Elizabeth, you want to take this one?
Sure. I don't really have an answer to it because I haven't leaned in to any of the resources. I'm not aware of many resources that are available to us. I would love to know more about that. As far as resources, it's always come back to, again, getting scrappy. So for me, what I'll do is if it's like, okay, the bank is looking a little low, how do I do this? So, I will pre-sell workshops. So back in September, I pre-sold, 80 spots for workshops for the holiday season so that there was some money in the account. So that's the resources that I have looked towards, is more looking towards myself. I would love to know if there was more resources available. And I feel that if they are, people kind of keep them to themselves and they're not just sharing them. I don't know if it's a competitive thing or what it is, but that's where I'm at with resources.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, kind of similar for me. Like in terms of resources, um, I feel like because we're self-funded a lot of the time, I think it's just more trying to be as creative as possible from the very beginning. And in terms of like learning how the business works, like a big thing for me was honestly like kind of what's available online. Like I would go to the bookstore and get like business books that was recommended by like a few mentors, or I'd signed up to a lot of newsletters that are kind of specific in teaching entrepreneurs like how to grow your business. And that's been, I would say that's been pretty monumental for us too, just to kind of see how other people operate and even like in a similar kind of e-commerce space as well. But I kind of just lean in terms of like whenever I have questions, especially at the early stages, like I've just really tapped into like just learning in books and honestly YouTube, just because I feel like specifically in my circle, there's not like a lot of entrepreneurs. So there's not like a mentor or someone that I can kind of ask, especially in the e-commerce space. So I would say I've just kind of like looked towards like the online community just to gain these questions. Or sorry,
Yeah,
these answers. Yeah.
thank you for sharing, Stacey. Resources and finding them is a huge question that we get from entrepreneurs at Startup Canada. It's a the reason why our programs exist, right? Is to be able to connect entrepreneurs. So obviously, I mean, this is a resource, being able to connect with other entrepreneurs and experts in the industry. But we'll pop in the chat. We actually have a resource bank with a list of articles and links to grants and funding and organizations that can help you. I know Ripen is in the chat today. They're a fantastic resource for entrepreneurs. So what we try to do is we try to compile them, all those resources that do exist into one easy list for entrepreneurs and small businesses to access, because it is very overwhelming. If you just Google resources for Canadian entrepreneurs, you're just going to be hit with a tidal wave of things that you don't really know how to filter through. So we'll pop that into the chat, just our resource bank, and hopefully that will be able to help you.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing because I feel like sometimes even like I know a big thing is like trying to find a mentor, but sometimes a mentor doesn't even necessarily need to be a person, even if it's just like a program of some sort exactly that have already filtered through like this like the endless kind of information that's available online. I would say that that's super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Now, Nabia is wondering, how long did it take for your business to become profitable? They say it's usually around 5 years. Did you find that was your story or something different for either of you.
Mine was a little bit longer. I needed to hire because I went straight into brick and mortar. I needed to hire team members at the beginning. So what I did was to be able to um, not have to worry about my salary. I still bartended for the first like 6 years of my business. So I would bartend at night while I had my flower shop. So that's how I subsidized my income in being able to have staff members. So I took longer to become profitable, and I made some not so great decisions at the beginning. Not knowing who my ideal customer was and buying for everybody, as opposed to just finding that, niche that I just kind of, finding my way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say same thing. Like it's super important because like I said originally, like at the beginning, I think I just wanted to sell and I wanted to sell to anyone. But I think when you really hone in and figure out who your target customer is, and you just, I don't want to say you want to build your business around that person because it also has to align with you as the founder too. But something that like it's something that you just understand what the needs of your customer is and you just tap that into your business. But I would say for me personally, it probably has taken about a year to be profitable. I would say, I think at the beginning, I just obsessed over the company. And I think it was a little crazy, but I think it was all I thought about because I just had so much belief in like how my kids, like just me as a mom and just seeing like how I was sleep is a really big thing for me. So like just for me to be able to wake up and feel well rested, but more importantly, for having my kids to wake up and feel well rested. I think just because I just knew it was such a game changer for us. And then once I started getting feedback from customers and for them to also say like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like my kid's been battling eczema and I've tried like all these different skin like creams from the doctor. And then all I just really needed to do was like reconsider their like sleepwear of choice or even their clothing. Um, that's really what motivated me just to get the business going. And I think by word of mouth, as well as like organic and obviously paid ads, that's kind of what really sped up the process for us.
That's great. What a success story. Only a year to be profitable. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Good job, Stacey.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Um, Now, Elizabeth, what challenge or barriers do you see that need to be solved at the ecosystem level? So we're talking government, industry, investors, mentor networks, which we've talked about a little bit, to enable specifically more women-led businesses to thrive.
Again, it goes back to those resources, Amanda, like just knowing where to find that, knowing that, you can where to even look, who to even ask, who is safe to ask, as opposed to people that are just, we're all getting these like spammy emails, I can help you with your funding, I can do this, I can do this. And it's like, well, just you're like, this is all crap. I need to just focus and get my work done. So I think it's really knowing where those resources are. And then also people being more forthcoming with, it's not just shiny happy over here and everything's so great and all I do is play with flowers all day. So I think we need that honesty amongst people, whether it is, in fashion, in restaurant, in spa, like whatever it is. But as far as like female owned businesses, I wish there was not like a stitch and bitch, but like a place you can come together and just share and people get it. And it's not going to be like, oh, she's a failure. She's a failure. And be able to just be so giving with information to each other. Like I would love to mentor somebody who was in my position 15, 20 years ago. I would love to help them avoid 90% of the mistakes that I made, let them make the mistakes they need to learn. But I would love to help somebody else avoid and just not be, with their blinders on the whole time.
Elizabeth, I have a question for you because
Yeah.
with my business, there's no shelf life. So like if there's leftover
Lucky girl.
inventory, if there's leftover inventory, obviously it does suck, but like I'm able just to kind of keep it there and like maybe reconsider it. Like for example, our 2024 Christmas collection, some of the things that didn't sell, I've just took it off the website and reintroduced it again in 2025 and it just almost felt like a new print again. But in
Yep.
terms of flowers, I'm just curious, like, do you kind of limit the inventory of like flowers that are ordered just to kind of maintain within that shelf life?
Well, that's the interesting thing with our location is that when you walk into our store, our cooler is like a massive, like a big double door patio door. So that's like our showpiece, right? That's like our collection is there. So 60% of our sales for our business is from that cooler. The rest
Okay.
is plants, giftware, things like that in our shop. So we do try to minimize sometimes, depending on what the projections are after 20 something years, we know what has sold, this week last year or next week last year. And so we try to tailor all of our ordering based off of that. But hey, we screw up, sometimes on a Sunday, Monday, that cooler when we're closed, that cooler might be full. And if we
Right.
can't salvage any of that, and the last thing you want to do is send out product that's not 100%. It's, like rotting fruit, right? So we want it to look as beautiful as possible. So one of the things we do in the shop too is when we clean the cooler every Saturday, we go through and absolutely any single flower that can be dried, we dry. And then the team members will dry those and they'll repurpose those. We'll make wreaths, we'll make dried bouquets, we'll make arrangements. So we try to repurpose those things as much as possible, but we do have to be lean.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for sharing. I'll
Thanks,
take a moment to share that startup women. Obviously, we host these roundtables where entrepreneurs can connect because I really love what you said, Elizabeth, about community and showing up for one another. And Startup Women also tours. We do in person stuff around the country. So I strongly recommend signing up for our newsletter. Right now, we're in the stage of deciding where we're going in 2026, but we're going to have multiple stops across the country where we'll get to do some of these types of events in person, some networking breakfasts, some opportunities for women to connect with one another. We often decide some of those cities based off of, when you fill out your survey, when you had to register for this today, where are you? And seeing where our entrepreneurs are based. So, showing up to these and knowing where everyone is situated and where we should be visiting in Canada is really valuable information. So I definitely recommend signing up for our newsletter and seeing. I think it'll be February where we announce our stops for next year, and maybe people on this call can meet in person. I think that would be great. Before we hop into our roundtables, one last question for all of you, Rowena as well, and it's just building off of this final topic that we've been digging into, which is community. Each of you have a unique vantage point from logistics to retail to brand creation. Maybe other than what we've been talking about like compiling resources or having one-on-one mentors, what can we do as a community and possibly feedback for Startup Canada as well to better connect these pieces for women founders?
Hey, do you want me to go first? I actually think these events are great. Like I said, I think we've been a sponsor for Startup Canada for many, many years. And, these events, I think, helps build a community. And I end up getting, LinkedIn requests and some will, message me after. So I think these events are great. It's not just, attendees learning, it's also me hearing other businesses speak, what trials and tribulations they've gone through. And potentially that could spark an idea that maybe UPS needs to, focus on moving forward or develop a solution to cure some of these issues so that when new entrepreneurs come on board, on a logistic standpoint, those would be addressed. So I think these events are great. And I think for myself, if I was a small business entrepreneur company, I'd be leveraging and just listening and learning from everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Rowena, and thank you to you and UPS for being such great partners. Over the past many years, it's been a phenomenal opportunity for our entrepreneurs.